That's going to be our goal as we work through this section. But before we jump into that, let's just go back and remember a couple of things from past life here. Let's look at middle school long division. Let's take it a little bit further back. When you are learning how to divide this, let's label a couple of things. This number underneath here, this was known as your dividend. The number out front here is what you would call your divisor. And then whatever we got as an answer is what we call our quotient. Now let's also review, how did we actually divide this out? Like, it's been a while since you've just done long division by hand. Well, when you're looking at this, you would say, okay, will 4 go into 1? If 4 will go into 1, you could go through that. If not, you had to say, okay, will 4 go into 12? You'd say 4 times what would give me 12? And that's a value of 3. You would place it above the 2 on the 12, and then you would multiply. 4 times 3 is 12, and you would subtract it. That gives me 0, and then you bring down the next number. Then you compare again, and you say, okay, 4 and 6. How many times will 4 go into 6? They'll go into them 1 time. 4 times 1 gives me 4. 6 minus 4 gives me a 2, and then you bring down the next number, which is a 4. And then you compare again. You say 4 times what would give me 24. Well, 4 goes into 24 a maximum number of 6 times, and then you multiply 6 times 4 to give you 24, and you subtract. Bring down the next number, 2. Compare again. Will 4 go into 2? It will not go into 2, so we would say 0 times. And then this piece right here, because I have no more numbers, I would say this piece here is my remainder. And then what's nice about division, we know that multiplication is the same, so you go check your answer. And you could say, okay, if I wanted to check my answer here, I could say 4 times 3160, and then add 2 to that result. 4 times 3,160 is 12,640, plus 2. So it gives me 12,642, and check, that was exactly what we started with. So again, vocabulary-wise, just looking at it in a general sense, this number out front, remember, that was our divisor. Times, the next number was what we got as an answer on top, that was our quotient, plus our remainder. All that together was equal to our dividend that we were trying to divide by. And so what we're going to do is, you can see I'm using the same vocabulary, but now I've turned them into equations. And so what I want to do is take what we know from our long division in middle school and apply it to a polynomial situation. And so let's look at this first example here. Long division of polynomials. It says divide 2x squared minus 10x plus 12 by x plus 3. And so we can see that this is going to be my dividend. So that's what's going to go underneath this bar, 2x squared minus 10x plus 12. This piece out here is my divisor, so it's going to go out front. And when you're writing this in this order, you want to make sure that you're writing it in standard form, from your highest exponent to your lowest exponent or constant term. If you have any missing terms, make sure you put a 0 in there, and that'll all kind of help us having those placeholders in that standard form. Now, similar to when you were dividing earlier and you divided 4 into 12 and looked at the pieces, what we're going to do is we're going to compare. We're only going to look at the front terms. We're going to look at this x and this 2x squared. And we're going to think x times what would give me this 2x squared, and that is a 2x. Now, if you're not very good with figuring out those pieces, just come over here to the side and say, okay, 2x squared divided by x, that reduces down to 2x. Now, I do place it above the other x to the first power. That keeps things in orders. That also shows me I only have one more spot that I'm going to have to work with this before I get to the remainder zone. Once you place your number up above there, you're going to multiply 2x times everything out front. And again, if you need some smaller side work, just come over here to the side and say 2x times x plus 3. Distribute that in. That gives you 2x squared plus 6x. Now that result, just like earlier when we did 4 times 3 in the top and got 12, we're going to place it underneath it. So this gives me 2x squared plus 6x. And just like before, we're going to subtract this whole thing. Now, this is where mistakes happen. Students remember they're supposed to subtract, but they don't use that subtraction through the whole equation. So make sure you come in here and you change, I use a pen, change all your signs, and then you're going to add vertically. So 2 minus 2 would cancel. Negative 10 and negative 6 would give me a negative 16x. And then just like with our middle school long division, you're going to bring down that next result. Now we're going to have to compare again. X times what would give me negative 16x? And that's a negative 16. But again, if you need a small problem, come over here to the side, say negative 16x. Divide it by x. Reduce that. That tells you negative 16. Then you're going to multiply. You're going to multiply negative 16 times x plus 3 out front. Again, you can come over here and say negative 16 times x plus 3. Distribute. That gives me negative 16x minus 48. And that's what I'm going to place underneath here. Negative 16x minus 48. Note, we are trying to create the same number right here because then I am going to subtract this whole thing. But remember, when we subtract, we change all the signs. And then I'll combine negative 16 and positive 16. That cancels to give me 0. 2 and 48. That gives me, that gives me 50. And then I could say, okay, because of that. I've miswrote this problem. Let me go back and fix that. This is a positive 12, so that should have been a 12. That should have been a 12. There we go. And so 12, 12, that's a positive 60. Sorry for that small error. I hope I wasn't confusing you as I was working through that. Like, why did she change that problem? But you can see that I don't have any more numbers over here on the right. So that means now I'm done. This right here is my remainder. And so how do I write this as an answer? This is going to be 2x minus 16 plus, I'll say my remainder is 60 over x plus 3. Again, really channeling that middle school vibes of what's going on there. I want to work many examples to help you with this. So let's work another one. First, we're going to do the setup. So you can see that I'm going to go ahead and set up my bar. I'm going to have 6x cubed minus 19x squared plus 16x. I don't have a constant term, so I'm going to say plus 0. Then I'm going to put my divisor out front, which is x minus 2. Double check your problem. Let's not make the same mistake I made last time and make sure that we have everything in the right places. I didn't miswrite anything. Next, I'm going to start comparing, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm only going to work with this x. The negative 2 is just going to go along for the ride. And I say x times what would give me 6x squared? And that would be a 6x squared. Then you're going to multiply. And again, if you need to come out here to the side and do this, you could have said 6x cubed divided by x. That reduces to 6x squared. That's how I got that piece. Then you're going to multiply the piece you've written here times everything out front. So I could say 6x squared times x minus 2. Distribute, that gives me 6x cubed minus 12x squared. So I'll write that here, 6x cubed minus 12x squared. I'm going to subtract this whole thing. But again, just little reminders, we are going to change all the signs. So when I go to combine this, this gives me 0 here, and then negative 7x squared. And bring down that next piece. Then I'm going to compare again. I'm going to say, okay, looking at, these are my two pieces here. I'm looking at negative 7x squared and x. And I'm going to compare them. But if you need to, just come over here, make you a small problem. Negative 7x squared divided by x. Reduce that down. That gives me negative 7x. I'm going to place it here above this other x to the first power. That just kind of keeps me on track. Then I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply negative 7x times everything out front. So it gives me negative 7x times x minus 2. Distribute. It gives me negative 7x squared plus 14x. I'm going to place that underneath. And remember, we're going to subtract this whole thing. And this is where I would use maybe a pen and a pencil or grab a highlighter like me. And I'm going to change, stick with our same colors here, change all the signs. So I can see visually that I have done that. That's where students kind of have a miss. This would cancel, and I'm left with 2x. Bring down the next term, plus 0, which is just a placeholder. And now I'm comparing 2x with this x right here. We can come over here to the side and say, okay, 2x divided by x, that reduces to 2. So I'm going to have a plus 2 here. And then I'm going to multiply this 2 times everything out front. Again, you can make small problems as you go to kind of assist you. Not necessary, but it does definitely help in this learning process. 2 times x minus 2, distribute that. That gives me 2x minus 4. And I'll place 2x minus 4 underneath here. Now remember, we are subtracting this, so I'm going to have to come in here and say, change all the signs. So that cancels, and I get positive 4. This is my remainder. And so with this one, what is the result of dividing this? It would be 6x squared minus 7x plus 2 plus 4 over x minus 2. Now, this process is more cumbersome and detail-oriented than confusing. The best thing I can recommend is to go slow, show all your steps, and that'll help you in that process.